Welcome to Masters of Self University podcast, your highest source of sacred truths and universal wisdom. Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Rachel Fiori, mystic, spiritual teacher, psychic healer, and founder of Masters of Self University. Join our journey of soul transformation as we deep dive into this latest episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Masters of Self University podcast. I'm your host, Ellie Lee.
And I'm your host, Morley. And today we're going to be going into a few lessons that I have received from getting a second job and becoming more of the way of responsibility. Now, over the past couple of years, I have been solely focusing on coaching, on MSU, and I know this is what I came here to do, is to do this work, is to be a coach and guide people and help people along the same path that I'm walking, to learn from Rachel, to learn from my peers, the other amazing coaches and anyone else that we end up crossing paths with at MSU. And I guess I can start with, I've spent my whole life not really knowing where I was going and feeling very unguided. And when I was in high school, I was very jealous and envious of my friends who knew what they wanted to do. I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. And the only thing I was enjoying was bartending. And this was a time where I would go to bed at 5, 6 a.m. after working all night. And I would get up and try my best to make it to the university classes, but normally skip the morning ones because I've been working all night. And that was my lifestyle for a number of years. And I look back now and I'm very grateful, and I can see more about, why I was guided to do that. And at the time, it didn't feel guided at all. It felt like I was lost. I carried a lot. I'm working through it now, and this is what we're going to get into. I carried a lot of shame for not knowing what I was doing, for feeling like I'm only worth just being a bartender. And I judged myself a lot for that. And so now I'm living in San Diego, fast forward to now, like last couple of years. It's expensive to live here, and I needed extra income. And I kept on resisting for a while going back to be a bartender. And I was trying to, for a while, just be a barista, and I was applying to all of these jobs, and I was just getting rejected after rejected, just time and time again. It's been really wild to feel and see. I have 13 years of hospitality experience, done everything from pot washing up to management, and I just couldn't get a job anywhere. And it's not like there's not many. I'm in North San Diego County. I was applying everywhere and just felt like I kept on getting blocked. And eventually I ended up applying to a bunch of bartending positions, and I had to work through so many layers of resistance and shame and grief. And I know we have done a podcast on this before last year, but I had to move through many layers of grief. And the grief is the pain of going back to something I know I'm not here to do. The pain of knowing I came here for what feels like something more, and having to be okay with that, and then go back into that after doing it for years, knowing that this isn't my path anymore. As like 4 years ago, I stopped drinking alcohol for the most part. I knew this wasn't my path, but I still had to do it because it's the only career I had. And obviously in the US, it's a massive tip-based position, and you can make good money, good living out of it. So it's taken a lot to go back there. And in doing so, I found a job, and it feels so guided. And I'm learning so much, and I'm having to face so many parts of myself that I'd kind of left there. I'd left in the bar, I'd left at the hotels, parts of myself that I'd separated off, I've judged, I felt shame for, I felt unworthy for. And now I'm having to go back and find those pieces and heal and integrate. And it's turned out to be a really beautiful experience. Start there.
Yeah. So watching you, I have first seat of watching this whole journey for you. And like, I really felt like how difficult it was for you to move through every layer and see you get to a place of complete surrender of, I have to go back to being a bartender, because there's also the alcohol layer to this too, right? Where you always said to me, like, I don't want to be serving poison to people. Like, that's not integrous with what my soul is here to do. And to see that the universe was like, no, we go back to this because there's so much for you to heal within that. You had to work through some major stuff. And I'm sure that was very, very difficult.
Yeah, from my human perspective, and maybe my spiritual ego, I'm not sure. I was like, there's no way that I could be guided to go back to somewhere where I'm literally poisoning people. Like, that is not in alignment with what and who I am. That can't be in alignment with divinity. Like, how could I be guided to go do that? Because let's face it, if you drink, no judgment. I don't really drink anymore. I may have a drink one day, but it's been a couple years now. And it's poison. Alcohol is literally ethanol. And it just blurs your consciousness. It numbs you down. It brings you to a very low level. So I'm like, I know this isn't in my path anymore. How can I be guided to go back and do that thing? And, it's just one of those things that, well, I guess what I think I know and like the truth is still a lot there. Like, there's still a big gap there. And maybe my perspective from my little egoic self thinks that there's no way that could be guided. And like, who am I to judge that? Who am I to know that? And that's one of the things that has really helped me to heal and see is like, I've judged myself for that. And there was a layer that I had to dissolve of judging other people for doing that. And now I'm surrounded by it, bartending again. I can't carry that energy. I can't be in that energy of superiority, inferiority, and thrive at this work. Like, I would end up hating what I'm doing. And so I've had to surrender to all of that and just accept that being responsible is more important than, standing by this idea of what I think being aligned with my soul is. The first way of oneness is the way of responsibility. So before I can get to anything else, I have to be responsible and live in the real world. And this is another thing that it's really helping me with is for the last couple of years, all of the work I've been doing for the most part has been online. And my human interactions, I mean, this podcast right now, we're not doing it in the flesh. Like, it's not like we're sat down and having a conversation. We're doing it through Zoom, or this isn't through Zoom, but we're doing it through this amazing medium. I'm so grateful that we have it, of being able to record content and put it out. But the technology, it does create a layer of separation, and it's been really great to be back around people more. And I foresee, hopefully soon in the future, as Masters of Self University grows into a physical location, many physical locations, we won't have to worry as much about this particular thing, but it definitely, I can feel the effect that it's had for the past couple of years doing all of my work just through a screen, through technology. There's an element of, there's a lack of grounding that it brings in versus being in the physical with another human being and interacting with another human. It is a different experience. It's next level when you're around people. So it's been really beautiful for that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a program resistance playing out there, right? When you know, your mind is saying, well, like, of course, like divinity wouldn't want me to go back to alcohol and feeding poison. There is resistance in that too, right? Like all of these ways for you not to walk into that chapter again that your mind tells you or whatever you're running at that time so that you don't have to go into that. So I remember like as you were moving through all of this, it was like yeah, I can't do the bartender thing, but I'll do the barista thing. Or it's like, you know, it's like all of these things to not be in complete surrender to like what you're being called to do. I think this is something that we can all relate to. We can all justify things, you know, so that we don't actually have to do the thing that's being asked of us. And
Yeah.
until you become acutely aware of like, oh wait, I'm running this thing right now because when I run this thing, it justifies why I would never dare to go back to that or whatever it is. And this is how we stunt, you know, our growth or stunt, you know, what's being given to us for that for us to elevate.
Yeah, I was in my mind thinking about it was in my mind. It's that
Yeah.
simple. Like I'm in my mind saying, oh, well, that can't be what the guidance is.
Yeah.
Like, and obviously when you're in your mind, you're not truly connected. And the first thing I got when it was a while ago, it was like 8 months ago, I knew that I had to go back to work. It was like, well, a barista would be tolerable. I would
Right.
still be behind the bar. I would still be, you know, doing things, creating something. I would still be talking to people and interacting with people, but the energy would be different because it's coffee, not alcohol. Just from one drug to another. Hilarious, really, right? But it just didn't work out that way. It just didn't work out. It was just block after block after block. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of resistance.
Yeah, a lot of resistance.
Yeah.
And like it's so challenging when finally you find what you actually want to do for your life and you've said goodbye to this old life that had so much weight to it, right? And then to humbly go, wow, I have to go back to that while I mean, holy shit, like that would, you know, rile anybody up for sure. Like I remember like, you know, I spent the last 50, and I'm still in it, obviously, like I'm still in the entertainment industry. But when I was starting to have an ego death with my career, I was like, well, I want to start walking into the spiritual world. And I decided just to take a part-time job at a crystal store. And I remember being at the crystal store and I had all this come in of like, what are you doing right now, Ellie? Like you spent your entire career, like, you know, being on camera and like, you know, the glitz and the glamour. And now you're like working part-time in a crystal store. And like, well, but I had to learn so much humility in that. And there was so much growth for me during that little stint where I decided to work part-time. And it's like, if I didn't have that, I wouldn't have grown in certain ways and seen certain things. And so, yeah, I mean, there's so much grief in the letting go of that, but then having to go back into that.
Yeah. And just today, so I got my schedule. So I'd love to go, if that's okay with you. Let's go a little deeper into like what's playing out, right? So I got my schedule today for this upcoming week and committing time to both MSU and a second job. It's challenging because now I don't have as much availability to commit to, as you said, like the thing that I spent my whole life searching for. What is it that I want to do? And I feel like I finally found it. And now it feels like I'm being blocked. And that brings up a host of different programs. And there was a lot of the resistance, like, no, this is what I want to do. I'm doing this. And obviously you can feel in that there's a little child that's not in surrender, like just hard, fast, stubborn, like it's one track mind. And so I got my schedule today and I'm not able to devote as much time as I want to this work because I have this second job. And immediately I started feeling all of this powerlessness. And I was like, okay, let me be with this. And I felt something come up. And it was while I was driving. And so I felt a different program dismiss it and push it away. But as soon as I stopped, I was like, no, turn off your podcast right now and just be with yourself and allow what's here to come through. And immediately it was all of this grief around my abandonment wound with my mom leaving when I was a kid. And I was like, wow, isn't this amazing? Like how this is all correlated. So I finally found the one thing that is going to make me happy in life, because I've never had purpose. I've never had like this true deep inner calling. And now it feels like I'm losing it. And it was reflecting back to me the part of me that still thinks that if she comes home, all of my pain is going away. And the reality is the pain was created at that age, at 6. There's nothing that can happen after that. This is what I had to guide him through this morning. There's nothing that can happen after that. Even if she came home, you still have to process that grief. It's still in there. It's not going away just because the outside circumstance is changing. And even if I never bartend again, that grief is still in there. And this is just the way that it came out, and it, was manifesting in this moment. So I was like equally moving through pain and grieving and feeling the loss of having to surrender to the thing that is ultimately going to make me happy, which is this life, this path, doing this work, having these conversations. Like this, I feel that. But inside there's an inner child that still wants mom to come home and thinks that if that happens, all my pain is going to go away. If I'm a coach, I don't have to touch that deeper grief that's in there. I can just, I can just bypass that because I have everything I need. This job gives me purpose. And so that's
so
kind of, that was the layer that came through today. And I was like, wow. Like, and it makes me wonder, like how many other things I'm moving through in my life that are related. Like maybe I don't know, but I know like that's what this work is all about, is discovering them. And it's just incredible.
Yeah, it's such a moment. I'd like to call that like a bug out moment, where like you're experiencing something that you would never think is correlated to a deep wound. And it's like, no, that's how this entire existence works. Is these experiences are reflecting back to you more the trauma. For you, it's like you've done a lot of layers of this abandonment wound, but like still, it's still going to show up until it's fully gone and dissolved. But like, it's such a bug out when you have that moment where you're like, wait, this experience is showing me this wound that I had from mom when I was 4. Like, and then my mind just goes like I get cross-eyed and I'm like, okay, like it's almost like another piece of this life existence video game that we're in.
Yeah, because let's look at it a little more. Like me going back to work is stepping more into the role of being responsible.
Yeah.
And when we do that, we have to, this is a part of me that's growing up, that's now it's not waiting for something to come. It's actively creating the life that I want to create.
Yeah.
So instead of just waiting for everything to happen and just waiting for, money to flood in, that aspect of me needed to realize that I create that part, and that like I can't keep relying on mom or dad to fix it. I have to fix it. And that's where a lot of us are trapped. It is, we're just looking up to mom or dad to fix our problems because they probably, that's what they were taught, or they disempowered us, or they did. And they might have thought that fixing our problems was a loving thing to do, but there's a trap there. If we never learn to fix our own problems, we're constantly just looking to them.
Yeah.
And so this was part of that integration of like, no, you have to go fix this yourself. Like this is your mess that you created. get on it. And in doing that, that opens the door to allowing the deeper pain to surface and come up.
Yeah. I was going to share something along with that, but probably in the next episode, I'll go deeper into that. But, I think that's also part of the spiritual bypassing issue that we have in the world of spirituality is like, and this is what I did too, is like, well, everything that I'm watching on TikTok and everything that they're teaching me is that I'll just wait for all the manifestations to come because I'm saying it 3 times and never taking any action. And then one day I'm like, wait, I'm broke as hell. And nothing's been coming for the last 9 months and I can't pay my rent. Like, I thought they told me that this is the way the manifestation worked. And for you got a true lesson in that, which is no, you take the actions, which means you're creating that reality, which means you're in that vibration of actual in alignment with what you're calling in.
Yeah. And it all depends on what energy we're coming from, right? So if I have, and I did, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing, if I have a little entitled kid that's in there that's just expecting money to flow to me or expecting mom or dad to do something to fix the problem, then that's the energy that I'm bringing into everything.
Yeah.
And as Rachel was teaching us, recently, the power of that unhealed wound, because it was created first at a younger age, it has more power than my conscious mind at 31. Mm-hmm. So if I truly want to transform my outer reality, I have to go back to those moments and heal all of those to really be connected to all of my power to create the reality that I really want to live in and see. And so if we have all of that unconscious programming in there, and especially for me, a lot of this was to do with unworthiness. And I spent, years and years and years in fancy hotels where I knew that I wasn't here to be a server bartender. I knew that. But it was just what I was doing. Mm-hmm. I just ended up doing it, and it paid the bills. But there was so much unworthiness that I held there. And because all that unworthiness is in there, that's all in there. And I'm creating that. It's manifesting into my reality. So it doesn't matter how much I'm like waiting for all this money to come in consciously. Mm-hmm. If I've got a 4-year-old kid that's in there that feels unworthy and a bunch of 20-year-olds that felt unworthy working in luxury hotels, I've got to heal all of that. I've got to move through all that to allow that abundance to flow in.
Yeah. On the note of, which I think is so beautiful, of like when you were driving your car today and you were grieving that, you have the job that you want so much for yourself, and now you're having to go back and do less of what you actually want to do. And then I was reflecting about the abandonment wound. Like, this is exactly what's happening to me right now, and I couldn't see it. So obviously, if you guys listen to the podcast, like, I volunteer at the animal shelter a lot. And I've basically spent like the last 5 months of my life just in complete panic mode about all of these dogs that are being euthanized, that are suffering, like all these things. And I was only looking at one layer, which is a very important layer, which is that the animal shelter shows me that I run a very, very big savior complex program. I want to save them. I don't want them to suffer because there's still a little girl in me that's waiting to be saved. And I got a deeper insight into this, thanks to Rachel, of the animal shelter. When I'm in there and I see how the system works, I feel so powerless and helpless and hopeless because these animals are not being given what they need for them to thrive and find homes. Okay. So I feel so powerless and there's nothing I can do to change the system. So I do all of these like behavioral programs. I'll go crazy on social media and I'll post them on TikTok and Instagram and like the Nextdoor app. And then I will, I'll try to get people to foster them, and I'll do all of these things. I'll take them to adoption events. I'll do all these behavioral programs. And the teaching she gave me and what she guided me into seeing deeper was that the animal shelter represents my mom. There's nothing that I can do here with this woman, with this animal shelter. I feel powerless. I feel helpless. I feel hopeless. I can't change her. There's nothing I can do. So, in what I need to actually do is allow that little girl to alchemize the powerlessness and the hopelessness and the helplessness that she feels with having a mom like the one that I have. And instead of doing that, I avoid and I do all of these behavioral programs where I'm posting on social media and I'm trying to get these dogs saved and blah, 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 blah. And it's equating to when I was a little girl, I didn't want to deal with my mom. And so I would just go into my room and I would do all of these avoidance things. I would just stay in my room. I would play. I would like just be by myself a lot. And the deeper like aha moment for me was like, oh my God, the animal shelter is reflecting this wound to me, that powerless little girl, right? That can't change mom, that can't change the animal shelter. That's where she needs to find her power. That's what she needs to alchemize, is all the hopelessness and the powerlessness and all of it. And it doesn't mean that me trying to help these dogs, get homes isn't beautiful and wonderful, but it's coming from wounding and it's coming from avoidance and it's coming from, let me do all of this so I don't have to feel that, instead of let me do all of this as I feel all of that. And that's a whole different energy.
Yeah, it always comes back to what energy we're in.
Yeah.
What energy are we embodying, and what is deeper, what's running in there? And that's the work that we do. What programs are we running? What wounds are being activated? Because from the outside it can look like such a beautiful and selfless thing, but
Right.
sometimes, like when we go deeper, and for me it's like, oh, I'm applying to all of these different jobs. I was applying to so many. I had this one session with Gregoire Basque, one of our coaches, and he was like, guided me to see like, what energy am I really in when I'm sending these applications? Because it felt like I was sending the application and it was just disappearing into cyberspace.
Yeah.
It was like they weren't landing.
Mhm.
And he allowed me to see that I was doing the applications from an energy of resistance, and I have to do this, instead of, I have to do this and I am powerful enough to do this.
Mm.
And I need to do this because I am the way of responsibility. And I
Mm.
always commit from an energy of resistance of, oh, I have to do this. I don't want to do this. And so when I send that out to the world, everything is energy. So of course I was getting blocked.
Right.
And then I was looking back now, I realized I was resisting that whole time
Yeah.
and sending that out. And
Yeah.
I mean, same thing for you. It's like, what energy were you in when you're going in and being with these animals and trying to save them?
Yeah. 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 So that was a pretty big aha for me. And then just it just gave me deeper insight into that. This is what this existence is about. So for all of you out there, like as you experience life, like really feel like, oh wait, okay, what is this showing me right now? What is it this asking of me to go into and to see and to feel and to heal? Because once you start doing that, it's not that it's fun because you still have to go through the experience, but it's also just a oh, okay, this is what we're doing here. And it's another awakening in that too. Because you live your entire life so unconscious. I'll just talk for myself. Goddamn unconscious as hell. Thinking life's always being done to me, like it's so unfair. It's so not right. And why do I have to deal with this? And it's like, I think, what you're moving through right now, and just also with what I'm moving through, is like, I have these moments where I'm like, I wish like my soul never brought me to the shelter. Like, I wish I didn't have to feel all this stuff. I wish I didn't have to experience all this stuff. And then I'll catch myself. I'm like, Ellie, that's exactly why your soul wanted you to go there. Where else would you have seen all of this pain? Where else would you have seen all of these aspects that are crying out for you, that need your love? And when you shift into that, you're like, oh, and then I keep showing up. Because as a warrior, right? If you let the powerlessness take over and you let all that stuff take over, you will never learn what you're meant to learn and how you're meant to grow. Like that's it. You've missed your chance. Okay. And probably the next experience will probably be even tougher. Right. And so when I shifted into that, it was like, oh, okay, I get it. I see it. And now I have the choice and the power to do what needs to be done for me to elevate and grow.
Yeah, one of the programs that I ran was like, I'm too sensitive, I can't be a bartender. And there is elements of truth there.
Yeah.
I don't think I could go and be a bartender in downtown San Diego and become a night owl again and be around all of that a lot. But I can go and be a bartender, and I am powerful enough. And this is one of the shifts that Rachel and you allowed me to like arrive at and see is I'm powerful enough to do something I hate and love myself through it.
Yeah.
I am that powerful. And I wasn't seeing myself as that powerful.
Yeah.
I was telling myself I'm too sensitive. I can't do that. And I look back now and I'm like, as you just said, like, what is the one thing that I really don't want to do, but if I did do it, I would be able to heal so much that's in there.
Yeah.
And it's like going back to the very thing that I thought I would never have to do ever again.
Right.
And this time approaching it from a very different energy. And yeah, I needed some guidance a couple of weeks ago. And I have a very, very sparse and very wonderful relationship with cannabis. So I took an edible and I was like, I need
literally, guys, this edible was like the lowest milligram.
Yeah, tiny, but I am so sensitive to cannabis. I don't do it very often. And when I do, it's basically 4 hours of healing for me. Well, I first had it and I was like, it must have not been very strong. And then an hour later, I was like, it kicked in. It was either 5 or 10 milligrams, so not large. And I sat with myself and I was like, what is going on here? Like, what guidance do I need? Because I think I had an interview lined up and it was just, I just got humble yourself for what's to come. And so that's the energy that I'm in now, is I'm just humbling myself every day that I go into work. Every moment that I'm in there, I'm trying to really humble myself. Yeah, and it's been working. It's really been working. Before I go to work, I go a little bit early and I drop in right before I connect and I remind myself of the mission. I remind myself of why I'm doing this, and I allow any of the programs that are in there to come up. And I've had so many moments where I wanted to just break down on the floor and cry. And I obviously don't do that while I'm working. Do that either on the way home or the next morning when I'm talking to Ellie. And I look back now and it feels incredibly guided. And one of the things, there was so many synchronicities that started to happen when I was working there. And I sat down and I'm immediately on my first day of orientation, I felt so happy when I walked in. And I was like, oh, this is how I'm supposed to feel at work. And obviously that's fleeting. It didn't last forever. And, you know, still going to get triggered while I'm at work, of course, and work through all that stuff. But I felt happy. And then with some of the friends that I've met there was all these synchronicities starting to happen. And just a couple of days ago, I opened up TikTok and the first video that popped up was saying about when you follow your intuition, one of the signs is synchronicities happen.
Oh, so, wow.
I was like, oh, and it was, you know, when you open up the app and it's the first video, it was like, oh, they wanted me to listen to this. It was like an old lady from like 1990s talking.
Love her.
Like Dolores. It wasn't Dolores, but it was like Dolores vibes. And I was like, oh, wow. That was very beautiful. And one of the synchronicities was I was torn with going back to Park Hyatt, which I used to work for Park Hyatt, another luxury resort. And it's literally right next to where I'm working now. And we had a server come in and I had an interview to go back there, and I was really dreading doing that because I would have been back doing the exact thing that I was doing before. And he started to share about how terrible it's ran and And it was that reassurance of why I chose to do working at the place that I'm working now. It was that, yes, this is exactly, it was like he got sent to come to the bar that I work at, to sit there and have this conversation and for us to connect so that I could feel, and obviously this is oneness, so there's always a reason why he's there and he's receiving something. But what I was receiving was that validation, that recognition, that right when I started, one of the concerns was, well, I would have earned a lot more money if I would have gone back to the Park Hyatt. Maybe I should do that. But something was telling me to go to the place where I'm working now. Something was just telling me. And so I listened to that. And if a few days into working, like during my training, I had this guest, and it was like, it just felt like the universe just tipping its hat saying, money isn't everything. I know you're doing this to make money to be able to afford to live in San Diego, but money isn't everything. And trust where you're guided. Trust that when you have that feeling, even if it's slight, just trust that. And so that was one of the many synchronicities that I've had from coming back there. And as I've learned, these synchronicities show up when we follow our intuition. Yeah. And our intuition, this was another thing that was shared in that video, was that your intuition isn't going to be rainbows and butterflies. Often our intuitive guidance can make us feel a little bit uncomfortable, is what this lady was sharing. And case in point, I did not want to go back to doing this thing, but it felt very uncomfortable. But I can see now that it feels very guided, and I'm very happy that I'm doing it. And it has caused a lot of things internally to shift big, because I'm integrating more the way of responsibility.
Ooh, mic drop on that. Mic drop on that. Beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful. I feel like you moved through this chapter. First it was bumpy, and then you just landed a triple axel. So I'm proud of you.
Yeah, it took a lot of bumps, a lot of falling, a lot of tumbling, and a lot of tears.
Yeah.
A lot of pain. And but that's the healing journey. And that's why we do the power within, is that the pain is going to show up, but our relationship to the pain, our connection to our heart, our connection to our divinity is what allows us to break free from these cycles.
Yeah.
And without this work, I would have been stuck in these cycles, lost, confused, not knowing what I'm doing, not knowing where to go, feeling unguided. And I felt like that a lot in this process, feeling very powerless and very confused. And again, back to what I mentioned earlier, teaching that aspect of me. It's okay that you feel lost. Stop looking outside of you for that guidance. Find it within. And that means don't sit there and do nothing. Take action, but from your heart. Be responsible and connect. Like, it's never one or the other. Keep showing up. Keep doing things. Like, it's not all, you're not just going to sit there and it's all going to come to you. We have to give and receive. It's a two-way street. This is oneness consciousness. Can't be a little brat just expecting everything to just fall on my lap. I have to actually become the ways. So on that note, if anyone is listening to this and interested, we have a group beginning, I believe it's August 12th at 5 p.m. PST. That will be 8 p.m. EST. Come join us, learn the power within. 12-week transformational journey. It's the work that Ellie and I do on ourselves pretty much every day. You'll learn the basics of connecting to your heart, the foundational understanding of how your programs are, how you absorb them, what they look like in you, and then, of course, how to heal, how to truly break free from these cycles, these patterns that we're stuck in. And transform at the energetic level, transform from the inside out. And so if you're interested in learning this work, please come join us for our next group class on August 12th, 5 p.m. PST, 8 p.m. EST. It'll be a Monday. and just sign up through a free consultation. And I hope to see you either in our free Discord, maybe in one of the groups, or on a consultation if it's me that gets the pleasure of meeting you. And Ellie, anything to wrap up?
Yeah, just share this podcast for anyone that's moving through, a chapter where they're resisting a lot. And just like Danny said, our lives would be much smoother if we just listened to our intuition. So send and share and comment and like, and helps us to keep doing this podcast for free. And until next time, we'll see you guys then. Bye.
Bye.